I'm gonna make you an offer that you can't refuse. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In tonight's video, I am ranking all three of the Godfather movies. If you are new here and you like content like this, movie news, Blu-ray trips, and award season, you're definitely going to want to hit that red subscribe down below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Now, this is embarrassing. I have never seen The Godfather before this. I bought this trilogy set this past week, and I focused and I said, I'm going to sit down and watch this. And that's dedication, because this is pretty much 10 hours of cinema that you're sitting down to watch. However, it is so worth it. Now, I'm going to go through little bits and pieces. Every movie has its positives and negatives, so I will go through those as I'm talking about my ranking. But before I do, I want to know what your ranking is. Have you seen The Godfather, and how do you rank them? Let me know down below. Let's start with the worst. The worst of the worst. What do you think is the worst? I think we all know what's the worst. It's The Godfather Part 3. Now, I have never seen The Godfather, as I said, and I heard through the grapevine that Part 3 is not that great. Although I was surprised to look up on IMDb, even though this movie is panned, it was still nominated for Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It just did not win. Now, my biggest complaint with Part 3 is the way they wrote, they meaning Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, how they wrote Michael Corleone's character in Part 3. I did not like it at all. This is Michael Corleone, the head of the family. He is the Don. And you have him as weak and frail, and he's full of regret. That's not how I want to see Michael Corleone at all. I want to see a powerful head of the family. A big problem for me, and I think for the movie, was the time gap in between Part 2 and Part 3. Because Part 2 came out in 1974, Part 3 came out in 1990. And that's a huge time gap. And I don't know what happened to Michael Corleone in those, 16 years? But it wasn't very good. Now, as far as performance-wise, Al Pacino was good. He was decent. I'm not saying he was bad, but he was better in Part 1 and Part 2. However, the great performances in Part 3 were the females, except for one, and I think we all know who it is, and I will get to that in just a second. However, Diane Keaton and Talia Shire, wow, they stepped up their game in Part 3. With Talia Shire, in the previous films, she plays the sister Connie. She's kind of the side piece. She's a side character. She really doesn't get too involved in the family business. She's just over there. But in Part 3, I think it's because there's not really a lot of family members left, to be honest. But in Part 3, she steps up and she becomes kind of evil. But she's this evil, menacing presence that really wants to take the family business in a different direction. It's just so juicy and good. And then Diane Keaton as Michael Corleone's ex-wife, Kay, I'm surprised she wasn't nominated, honestly. She has wonderful scenes with Al Pacino. Their chemistry is undeniable. But I think what's really important in Part 3 is that they kind of sort of make peace, because at the end of Part 2, they totally hated each other for good reasoning, and I will get to that in a little bit. But I liked Part 3, their relationship. It kind of came to a closure, and they didn't have as much hatred as they had before. Now let's get to the really awful female performance, which is Sophia Coppola. And unfortunately, this is not her fault, because she was not even originally cast for this role. It was Winona Ryder, but she left because she wanted to do Edward Scissorhands instead. So she left the shooting the day before it was supposed to begin, leaving Francis Ford Coppola in the lurch. I'm thinking he looked over at his daughter and said, "Hey, you look Italian. You're going to be Mary." Not a good idea, considering that Mary is a very big pivotal role in Part 3, and to give it to such an inexperienced actress, not a good thing whatsoever. And I did not appreciate the incest storyline with her and her cousin, first cousin, by the way, Vincent, although portrayed brilliantly by Andy Garcia. I've got to say, that is one hell of a powerhouse performance. Part 3 has its drawbacks, but it does have a little bit of positives. Another drawback, the plot line. The story was all over the place. There's popes, there's cardinals, it's very religious. I don't know, maybe I'm just not that religious, and that's the reason why I wasn't really into part 3, and it kind of annoyed me a little bit with that. I don't know, but you don't need all of that. The Godfather should be a very simple plot line. You don't need all this extra stuff. So that's the reason why I didn't really care for part 3. It's still good, but it's not as good. Now let's get to our runner-up. Which one do you think is my runner-up? My runner-up is The Godfather Part 2. Ooh, I'm going rogue. That's right. I know a lot of people put Part 2 as their favorite Godfather movie, but not for me, and I will give you my reasons why. Now, positives, I absolutely loved Robert De Niro. His performance absolutely killed it. Definitely deserved that Oscar. And I loved how we went back in time and discovered how Vito Corleone rose to power. That was the entire Robert De Niro storyline. Then we came to the present day with Michael Corleone taking over as the Don fully and, rising to power and finding his place. This movie was a little bit too long, though, I have to admit, probably because of the multiple storylines going back and forth between the present and the past. But I'll let that go because the Vito Corleone storyline was necessary, I believe. So it was like 3.5 hours, guys. 3.5 hours long. That is really long. However, it did move. It wasn't too drawn out. It was like just enough. If it was drawn out any further, then I would have been kind of bored, but it kept a good pace. And the one scene that really, really shook me was between Diane Keaton and Al Pacino in his office. And he says, the dialogue, and he says to her, "I'm sorry, I missed the miscarriage," or something like that. And when she said that it was an abortion, I embraced for the hit. I knew she was going to get slapped. That shocked the hell out of me. I was not expecting that. Chills ran up and down my body. That's like total betrayal. I couldn't believe she did that. I felt for him as that's his child. He wants to grow his family, but I also understood her reasoning because she wants out of the lifestyle. She doesn't want to bring any more children into the lifestyle. Oh my God. That moment between those two actors was absolutely brilliant because they're masters at their craft, and it was absolutely amazing to watch. I don't really have too many negatives about part 2. Like I said, the runtime was a little bit long and kind of a lot of storylines going on. Not as much as part 3. Part 3 stories were like kind of everywhere. Part 2 had, more things going on everywhere. But overall, part 2 is extremely solid. But the original Godfather is my number one choice. Pretty much because of Marlon Brando. He is brilliant in his portrayal as Vito Corleone. That opening scene where this man is sitting in a dark room, you could feel the power. You can feel the greatness. The guy that he is talking to he's the guy. You could feel it. And then it's revealed that it's Marlon Brando. It's the Godfather petting a cat. And I just loved how they used the darkness to make that impact statement without even having to say a word. Marlon Brando's performance is absolutely amazing because you forget it's Marlon Brando. You forget any other role that he's ever played, and he is so convincing as Vito Corleone. Another thing that I loved about part 1 was that they focused more on the relationships and the family and Italian events because we open at a wedding. It's Connie's wedding, and that takes up a lot of the movie, I have to say. And I really enjoyed it because that's true Italian culture. And being Italian, I love seeing stuff like that. So that was a pleasure for me to watch. And I love family interactions. You had all four of the children. You have Vito, you have the mom, you have Tom Hagen. And it was just such a wonderful dynamic. And all of those actors together in one room with their closest friends around them at a dinner table eating pasta. I just thought it was amazing. It was absolutely brilliant. So this is the reason why The Godfather, the original Godfather, is number one on my Godfather rank. Let me know how you rank The Godfather. Have you seen it or have you not? Let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.